Hey, welcome back to Bat Break. I'm Nick here, joined with Dan and Steve Masi. We're going to discuss special issue bats, primarily bats that were manufactured for players to use in the All-Star Game and the postseason. So, guys, how does it work when it comes to All-Star Game bats, postseason bats, as far as the bats that are issued to the players?
I think traditionally it's sort of been accepted that All-Star Game, most guys get two bats, and World Series, most guys get two bats that are branded for the World Series or the All-Star Game. You'll even see some bats that are branded for the LCS.
Right.
They're kind of hard to come by,
Mm-hmm.
and oftentimes they don't get used. I
Right.
find. Or they just get put in the rotation. They get used the following year or after the All-Star Game, but they're cool. They obviously carry a premium, and they're sort of fun to hunt down.
Right. Yeah, before the manufacturers really blew up and you had multiple options, you just had Louisville Slugger and Rawlings, right? And back in the day, you would typically get, I believe, two issue bats from both manufacturers. Even if you didn't use Rawlings, you were a Louisville guy, Rawlings would send you a couple. And a lot of times these bats were used for teams. They'd get team signed and given away as gifts or as a memento that they made the postseason or All-Star Game. Like Steve mentioned, a lot of times these wouldn't be used. What about the modern bats, Dan? What have you been seeing as far as the play? What the bats look like, if they're being used. Is it something that's just a regular season bat they've been?
I don't think they do All-Star Game bats anymore, do they? Like branded?
They're not
stamped?
I don't remember seeing one recently.
Well, now they have Players Weekend bats,
right,
which are crazy with what goes on in the Players Weekend
It's
bats.
Awesome. Mother's Day.
Yep, Mother's Day. Obviously, they make the pink bats.
Right.
Father's Day, they're not doing blue bats yet. But
No, I've heard that it's. I've talked to people about that. It's a bit of a process for a company to sort of switch and manufacture a different color, and I think they're not all that excited to have to make another color.
Sure.
Right.
But I know they're still making ALCS and World Series bats, obviously.
Right. Yeah, I think they did away with the barrel branding. It might have even been banned by MLB. They did away with any of the special branding on the barrel as a
Fun police.
Yeah, exactly. Which was really cool. And from a collector's standpoint, one of the coolest bats you could come across was a bat that was branded for the All-Star Game, World Series, especially back in the day. Mantle, Mays, during that era, they used those bats a lot. And when you got issued a World Series bat, those players were excited to be in the series. It's a choice cut of lumber, and it typically was used, I think, back in that era. Then you got into the late 70s, 80s, and I think they were more trophy items a lot of times.
But you do find, I know of there's a very nice 2009 World Series Jorge Posada bat that is photo matched multiple times to the 2009 World Series. It's kicking around in the hobby, and people do use them.
Right.
But more often than not, if a guy's hot, he's got a couple bats he really likes, he's not going to
stick with it.
In the World Series or the playoffs, switch things up.
Right.
And they don't care about the stuff like we do. They don't. Maybe a lot of players don't find it as cool to use a World Series bat in the World Series, and it's just a tool.
Right, but if the grain, if it's a beautiful bat, maybe they'll give it a shot. They like the feel, but more times than not, they're gifted. But that's why it makes it special when you do find something like this here. I guess we would call this vintage now, which is crazy. But this is a 1987 Dave Winfield Rawlings bat. You could see it's branded 1987 All-Star Game. This was up in Oakland, and a bat that was used. Now this bat has Dave's typical spiral tape job up the length of the handle, and you can see some red ink on here.
Some great red ink
right here, and the All-Star baseballs had red ink on the balls as opposed to the traditional black or blue. So that a lot of times is a giveaway that the bat was actually used in the All-Star Game or batting practice that day, which is something you have to keep in mind. During BP, they would use the special issue baseball, so it might have just been a BP bat that didn't actually.
Well, it's also a great way to pick out bats that aren't branded for the All-Star Game or the World Series that were used in the postseason or the All-Star Game when you see the ink transfers from the special balls.
Yeah. Right. So on this one, we were actually able to photo match it and video match it. We found footage of Winfield, and this was back in that time. He played the whole game. I think the game actually went extra innings. He got 5 at-bats.
Those days are over.
Right. Now it's your 1 or 2 at-bats. He played all 10 innings, got 5 at-bats, doubled with this bat, and then he cracked it. His last at-bat against Lee Schmidt, he grounded out to shortstop, I believe in the top of the 10th. But really cool bat, and one that was actually issued to Dave for the All-Star game and used in the All-Star game. And it's got the characteristics of the red ink on the barrel. It's autographed. I believe this bat was gifted to the home plate umpire that day, and then it was resold years later and found its way into the hobby, which is always amazing how that even happens some of these times. So this would be an example of a nice kind of needle in the haystack find of one that's a special issue bat and kind of separates itself from a regular Winfield bat. This one was used for the All-Star game.
Very nice.
And along those same lines, sticking with the vintage theme, we have an 86 Mike Schmidt bat, which was an MVP season for Mike. Again, this is a Rawlings Adirondack. Both Winfield and Schmidt were Rawlings guys. Branded 1986 All-Star game. Got a nice signature on the barrel. All the characteristics you want for Schmidt with the pine tar pattern. Mike would usually grab the bats here, which would wear off the tar. You've got his number 20 on the knob and an X. He would write an X on his gamers during this era. So he knew that this was a bat he used in the game. Now this bat, I haven't been able to find footage of him using in the All-Star game. It may have been, it may not have been. It was definitely issued for the All-Star game. But what would happen, do you think, Steve, if I actually found a clear photo of him using this bat as far as the value?
I think you double, triple maybe?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a great bat. It's a great Schmidt bat. And Schmidt bats, I think, are still undervalued for whatever reason. It probably, in all likelihood, I mean, because it's got a lot of use on it. In all likelihood, he may have used it in the All-Star game, but obviously kept using it.
Right.
You know, if it's a bat that was used in one game, like that Winfield bat, I'm guessing it was used well past the All-Star game. Oh no, it was cracked in the All-Star game.
So this was one. This is basically 5 at bats worth of use, which is actually pretty good.
Probably
use.
BP'd with it too. Actually, if you look at
the
use on it.
Right. There's a lot of use on that, but I mean, if you can photo match this, but again, photography in 1986, not photography in 2019. You're not going to get that super high def imagery.
Right, and it's a great point you brought up with the extended use, because if this was supposedly used for one game, which doesn't hurt its value if the player really liked it, was used in the game, and then carried it over because he liked the feel of it and kept using it, or it could be a sign to you that this wasn't used in that game, and he liked it and used it post All-Star game, which would carry a slight premium being an All-Star issue bat. It's rare. It's got great eye appeal and display. It looks great on display. But if you actually pinpoint it, put it in the player's hand during the All-Star game, and if you did anything significant during that game, now you're talking about a pretty special piece that's going to sell for a premium. Dan, you got a couple bats that were used by modern players. It's in the postseason, right? It's just similar that these bats were either branded or just issued to these players, and we were able to find out they were used in the All-Star game.
The Mother's Days are obvious. I mean, you can see a Mother's Day bat from literally a mile away. Just a pink David Ortiz Mother's Day bat, final season, home run bat. So that checks all the.
And I think it's safe to say with the pink Mother's Day bats, if they're using the Mother's Day game.
Yeah.
That's it. Because you legally can't use
they're not getting
these
carried over later into the season.
So it's one of the few times where
it's easier to pinpoint.
Use, you're not really looking for tons. If you get some use on it, that's great. But Mother's Day bats, you're not going crazy. Your Braun Mother's Day bat seems to have a ton of use, actually.
Yeah, he used it for the whole game, which is this one here. He used it for the whole game, hit a home run and a double with it. So, yeah, especially if guys are pine tar users or Motus stick, as the case here, it helps because they're going to prep the bat anyway. Of
course.
But yeah, usually you're not going to find these bats where they're just crushed with use unless they use them during BP.
Right. And then another one here. This is not a branded bat, but Dustin Pedroia, 2008 ALDS bat. So it's nice to actually hologrammed to the actual playoffs.
Right. That helps.
It's very, very helpful.
Right.
But then you still have to go and match it yourself because
people mistakes
are made.
Of course.
So I was able to match that. I actually haven't looked during the regular season, so we might have done some cool stuff during the regular season with it too.
Such a cool bat. And what does the hologram indicate for those out there that aren't familiar with the MLB authenticating process?
There's two kinds. There's a MLB hologram where it can say something was game issued, which just means that it could be brand new, it could have tons of use, but they can't pinpoint when it was used. Or it can mean this guy hit a ground ball to first base on the third pitch of the inning, or hit a double, or whatever it was.
They can get very specific.
Very specific. Right. And they're getting more and more specific as time goes with the pitch thrown and everything.
Right.
Which if you're a modern collector, I think is great. I mean, I don't have a lot of modern stuff, but I think if you're a modern collector, it takes listen, you still have to do your homework.
Yep.
Right. And I would much rather have, as not really a modern collector, the sticker doesn't faze me.
Mhm.
I like to do my homework, see what's there. I'll take a photo match over a hologram
All
10 times
day.
out of 10.
Yep. And then one of the cooler bats I have is a 2007 Manny Ramirez ALCS branded bat, which he did use in the ALCS,
There you go.
matched to
So cool.
at least games 3 and 5, I think. And I'm 90% sure I have it matched to the World Series
Wow.
in 2007 as well.
So
Great
cool.
bat. Those
Same thing where-
those
where-
X-Bats were cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And Manny would love the tar and the motor and the whole deal. But it's filthy, uncracked. I think he signed it that may have worn
yeah.
off, but
So correct me if I'm wrong, Dan. It seems like these X-Bats were widely popular during this time. But it seems like there's a lot of these. I don't know if they were meant for retail or what they were meant for, but there was a handful of these ALCS bats. I feel like I've seen a lot of these.
there's
the
at
X-Bats.
least 3 of these.
Right. So, and those were all issued to Manny, as far as we know.
And I-
but
and
you
I-
got the photo match of it, which
Doing the research, I
Kind of
found
trumps
him.
everything,
Yeah.
obviously.
So it kind of, I always thought guys got 2 bats, but Manny got at least 3 of these
Mhm.
because I have this one, I have a buddy who has another one just like it, and then by doing research, there was also a cupped end one that I saw. So
X-Bat.
there's X-Bat, the exact same thing as this,
Same branding.
except instead of saying model MR24, it just says model 24.
That's
So-
Manny's custom model.
Yep.
And so this had to be one of the last years that this was allowed
Probably,
by MLB with the branding.
probably.
And I'm assuming he was issued World Series bats once they made it,
Yep.
but he liked this and probably carried it over.
I know he used the ALCS bats in the World Series, and he did use his 2007 and 2004 World Series bats in the actual games.
Oh, wow, okay.
Wow. And in 2004, he used the World Series branded bats
Yep.
in them for. Cool.
And also, I know Manny used these ALCS, the World Series bats in 2008, the next season.
Following season.
Oh,
Yep.
yeah. And that's the other great point. Is a lot of times these bats are, especially the World postseason ones, are carried over to the
Yeah,
following.
you get them so late in the season, and
Right.
they're good bats.
You
So-
can use them for 11 games max at that point.
And you could tell they're usually beat up quite a bit. A lot of these guys they're taking BP in the off season, so they're hitting in their cages at home, and it's a 98 World Series bat that Jeter or whoever might have used in the batting cage that off season. So the use has to be consistent with only been used for a few games, whether it's postseason or a single game for Mother's Day or for the All-Star game. When you're dealing with those bats, if there's too much use, could be a red flag. But as always, you want to research possible photo matches, photographic evidence. And we got one more here, this Albert Pujols bat. Now, this was an All-Star bat as well, 2004 All-Star bat. It was not branded an All-Star bat. It was just a regular issue, Louisville I-13. So this was a bat that was sent to Albert in June or July, I'm assuming. He liked the feel of it. It's got quite a bit of use, so he probably was using it leading up to the All-Star game. And then in the All-Star game, he hit a couple doubles with this bat. It's photo matched the 04 All-Star game in Houston. Who knows if they were banging on the trash cans there when he was hitting these balls off the wall.
Current events.
But he looked pretty locked in. So really cool bat. I was able to photo match this because of the knob. Had a somewhat unique markings with his number 5 and then the 4.2, meaning 34 inches, 32 ounces. And he didn't always write that on the knob. So again, this was a bat that was up for auction. Kind of scanned some photos online and found a match. Just totally lucked out.
Did you buy it as an All-Star game bat?
No,
Or you
just
needed
a
that
Manny
match?
Ramirez
Pujols.
Albert Pujols 04 bat.
Good deal.
And just told that's kind of the thrill of the hobby, right? When
when you make a discovery like that.
Make a discovery, and obviously one of the game's all-time great hitters. But Albert was issued a couple All-Star bats in 04, and those bats obviously
Floating around.
weren't used. I haven't seen them. They were probably signed and given to, a
Whomever,
teammate,
yeah.
someone from the Dodgers or whoever. He was like, they trade, So that's why I think it's pretty. I mean, this bat is very cool and unique. But when you find those branded ones that were actually used in the game, I mean, it's a player preference, and if they actually get out in the hobby and you find one and can prove it, it's pretty cool. And it just comes back to really what a supply and demand. I mean, they're going to be in huge demand,
Very short
supply. They're going to be the top of the want list of most collectors, especially if you're a player collector, right,
For
Steve?
sure.
If you collect Paul O'Neill, I think we both know there's a World Series O'Neill branded bat out there that was used. If you're a Paul Neal
You want
collector,
that. You want that back.
or Posada.
Absolutely.
You know, so when you
If you're watching this video and you have the 2004 David Ortiz World Series bat, let me know.
Call
right, I mean,
Someone has it.
what did he swing in the World Series? Do you know, Louisville or Rawlings?
Slugger.
Slugger.
In 04. In 2007, Rawlings.
Mm-hmm.
13, Marucci.
And Rawlings later, which we don't have an example in front of us, but when they did away with the branding, they stamped the knob in a different manner that signified it was a postseason bat. You could actually see it.
I think they do ALCS, WS for World Series,
Right.
and ASG for All-Star games.
Right, and you had the players' initials typically stamped on the knob. You have DW here for Dave Winfield. So there's all sorts of literature online where you could get into the branding from different eras, as well as special issue, special occasion bats of what a knob should look like.
Well, I think the branding is important too to help you date.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the branding on all these bats has evolved over the years, and that's really, and some of them are very year specific. Again, with modern bats, it's easy because the date of manufacture is stamped on the bat.
Right.
Not so much with stuff made prior to, what was that, 2008 or 9 when they started doing that?
I mean, a lot of your guys' bats, there's like 3-year windows of when it
Oh,
could
and
have
if
been
you get
used.
into the 50s, there's,
Right.
8, 9-year windows.
Right.
So
Makes it tough to pinpoint when you're trying to photo match something.
Yep.
So, but this is just a brief overview of All-Star, Mother's Day, postseason issues bats, which are really cool when you come across them. And obviously, you got to do your research as always. Make sure if you're gonna pony up and pay a premium, that you're getting what you think you're getting. Because it's just don't go by the branding. It could simply have been used by at another period of time.
Mm-hmm.
So that's some info on special issued game used bats.